Scream 7 is out now in theaters. Let's talk a little bit about it.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
I want to be a fighter, like you.
Oh, let it burn! Let it burn!
Did you miss me?
You have to shoot them in the head. They always come back.
The boat can leave now. Tell the crew.
Well, sometimes that is better.
Good luck.
Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. If you like horror flicks just as much as I do, then make sure to like this video and subscribe for more reviews just like this one. Also, make sure to pick up some Stab merch before it's gone on March 2nd. Check that out by clicking on the link in the description below. Thank you to all of my channel members and Patreon supporters who keep me in business. Now let's get into this review. As a longtime Scream franchise fan, it breaks my heart to say that Scream 7 just did not really do it for me. Scream 7 is a haphazard sequel that cares more about franchise nostalgia than telling a good story. It's great at referencing little details from the past, but it can hardly build a worthwhile murder mystery to save its life. The biggest sin that this movie commits, however, is that I think that it's demeaning the fans for coming up with fun little theories. Maybe the worst thing a Scream film could do. Before we get into all of that though, let's talk about some positives. The kills here are by far the most brutal Ghostface has ever scored, but that sadly comes at the sacrifice of any and all tension. As you guys may know, I love the Terrifier films, especially the juxtaposition that those flicks create. You see Art the Clown with his big smile on his face and he's all excited to rip people to shreds like he's opening up presents on Christmas morning. Here, yes, they give Ghostface some of his most over-the-top and brutal kills like a Terrifier flick, but you don't have that juxtaposition. A great Ghostface kill is almost always made by its setup, the chase sequence that precedes it. Most of the chase sequences in this flick, especially in the back half of the movie, just do not build tension or suspense. I will give a little bit of credit to both the McKenna Grace kill that has a little bit of that beforehand, as well as the entire sequence at Sydney Evans' house. I love when Sydney and her daughter are in the walls and Ghostface is trying to stab through. Besides that though, there's a ton of fake outs in the opening sequence, very similar to Scream 4's opening that had me rolling my eyes. And none of the other chase scenes are really shot that well at all. Gory kills are cool, man, but what is a Scream movie without some anticipation? Shockingly, my favorite thing about this entire film is the characterization of both Gale Weathers and Mindy Meeks Martin. Gale is going through it in this movie after losing her job and suffering some awful nerve damage after her attack in New York. I wish she didn't disappear from the movie like halfway through it, but there are these fleeting moments of sympathy I have for Gale that just make me feel bad for her. She has been through a lot. I can't even believe I'm saying this, but Chad and Mindy are my two favorite characters of the entire flick, especially Mindy, whose personality gets a major and very overdue facelift here. Miss Meeks Martin is gunning to be the next Gale Weathers, and the ending of this film leaves you feeling like there's a lot of potential for this character moving into the next sequel. The biggest shock of Scream 7 for me was how much I loved Mindy coming out of this one. I really think there's potential to do so much with this character. Sadly, she never lives up to that here. But the groundwork that has been laid with Mindy here, I think is setting her up to be one of the better Scream characters, hopefully moving into Scream 8. Bravo, Jasmine! This film also sees the return of Sidney Prescott, or should I say Sydney Evans, whose characterization I just did not vibe with at all. I will admit, the film starts in a good place with her, this overbearing mother that is doing everything she can to protect her daughter from danger. She smothers Tatum, not even letting her go out with her boyfriend. While that feels like an organic progression for the character, she also smothers Tatum's runtime and just does not allow her daughter to breathe. Whenever Tatum is on screen, the conversation always seems to funnel back to her mother's trauma. Isabel May is just never given enough time to find her own identity with this character. As she literally says at the end of this film, "I'm Sidney Prescott's daughter." And that's it. As we dive deeper into the film, Sydney is fooled by deepfake video calls on her phone. Before this movie came out, Sydney was portrayed as a heroine, besting the odds even when everything was up against her. For instance, in the original Scream movie, she's no longer a virgin at a certain point, but still wins out in the end, overcoming Randy's cardinal rules to survive a horror flick. Here, she's portrayed as a dinosaur who is fooled into thinking the guy she killed 30 years ago is still alive and still somehow coming after her. Sydney has been deceived believed before, yes, but she's characterized here like my grandma who can't differentiate between AI videos on her phone and reality. Because of that unfortunate plot element, any and all badassery with this character is down the drain. Speaking of which, the Stumacher video calls in this movie border on embarrassing, as they dissolve any and all tension in this flick that might have been built up beforehand. Not only does it take time away from the great Roger L. Jackson to deliver some terrifying Ghostface lines that are basically non-existent here, these scenes are so goofy that they just had my crowd nervously laughing. At the end of almost all of these calls, Matthew tries to say something sinister, and then he like gives this crazy face and like presses the end call button. And it is so unintentionally goofy, it just had me rolling every single time it happened. These are placed in the film to hopefully build up some tension, but it's done so poorly that I can't help but laugh. I thought it couldn't get any worse than that, but then we get to the third act. When Sydney returns to her home, she's greeted by AI versions of Stu, Debbie Salt, Roman Bridger, and Dewey Riley, who pop up on screens everywhere in her house. I also have to mention that they're standing in what appears to be an AI-generated version of Stu's house. I thought that zombie Sarah Michelle Gellar was bad, and I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025, but this scene officially takes home the gold for most condescending nostalgia cameo of all time. It is beyond unnecessary. There's less de-aging done here on these characters than there was for Billy Loomis back in Screams 5 and 6, and they made David Arquette look goth. Are you fucking kidding me? The whole damn movie is about AI. Characters are constantly talking about AI, and the commentary is underbaked at best. I will hand it to the film, they vilified the technology that is evil, deceptive, and a cancer to the film industry, but it never really has anything new to say about it. Compare that to Scream 4, that showcased an influencer killer at the dawn of that craze. That was laced so perfectly into the storyline of Scream 4. Why were these killers specifically using AI technology to fool Sydney into thinking that Stu Macher was back to life? How they try to tie that to the killer's motive too just does not make a lick of sense. Anna Camp and Ethan Embry end up being our ghost faces, which is underwhelming for a number of reasons. First off, they're both barely in the film beforehand, so it's kind of like we have two Debbie Salts. The only reason I felt like they were obvious is because the movie makes a point to shoehorn these characters into the story, and then they're just never seen again until the reveal. The best murder mysteries, or should I say the best Scream films, hide their killers in plain sight. Billy Loomis in Scream 1, Jill in Scream 4. That's done to make the audience think that these characters are good guys so that you're shocked when they have a turn and they're revealed to be bad guys. Here, the killers don't follow that tried and true method by any means. Just like a lot of the elements in Scream 7, the motive for this film starts in a really thought-provoking place, but spirals out of control. Anna Camp's Jessica states that after reading Sydney's book, Out of Darkness, she decided to kill her abusive husband in order to have her life back. Had the movie stopped there with the motive, this could have been a really fresh and inventive new kind of killer that might have even felt a little sympathetic. Unfortunately, the movie has to keep going. Jessica then went to Fallbrook Psychiatric Hospital, where she met Ethan Embry's character. She then recruited him, with his knowledge of AI tech, to replicate previously dead Scream characters to torment Sydney. This all ends up being one big scheme to turn Sydney's daughter into the new Sydney with a fresh batch of trauma. What the absolute fuck are you talking about, Scream 7? Anna Camp could have simply done all of this by just killing her father. That's a terrible thing to happen to a young lady. How does tormenting somebody's mother with generative AI lead to traumatizing their daughter so that they're the new Sydney so that they can write some new books? Not only is this a significantly worse version of Scream 5's motive, but it's also underpants gnome logic at best.
Phase 1, collect underpants. Phase 2, Phase 3, profit.
This idea has potential, but it's clouded with way too much bullshit for it to ever work. I like the whole Catcher in the Rye thing that this movie has going on, but it should have been just as simple as that and nothing more. Look at Billy Loomis as an example. He wanted to kill Sydney because he blamed her mother for breaking up his family. What works so well about that is that it's rooted in reality but jumps off to terrifying heights. Not everyone is going to become a slasher villain in that tragic scenario, but it's definitely something that has happened before. Therefore, making it relatable. Compare that to Jessica in this film. She has that point A down, the idea that she killed her abusive husband after reading a self-help book. I'm sure that there are sadly numerous cases just like this where someone is forced into taking out their own partner because they have no other option. But I doubt that there's any cases so far that involve generative AI tormenting the person who wrote the self-help book in the first place. Also, if Jessica's whole motive is I hate my abusive husband and I want him to die, why did she kill her son? Oh, sorry, let me rephrase that actually. Why did she seem to enjoy killing her son by pressing his head into a beer tap and watching a mixture of blood and beer spray out of his mouth in what is the most comical death of the entire film? It's like the silliest, most over-the-top kill in the entire franchise, and yet it apparently holds so much emotional weight. That just doesn't make any sense. It clashes so hard. Now, again, this could have worked. What if you wrote this as an accident? What if, like, the first Ghostface reveal happens at this bar? Anna Camp accidentally stabs her own son, who she didn't know was there. She takes off the mask, crying, saying, "I didn't want this to happen to you." That would have made this whole situation lean so much harder into that sympathy angle that this movie was begging for. Oh my god, she had an abusive husband and she accidentally killed her kid. I might actually be rooting for this Ghostface. That would have actually been thought-provoking and interesting. It also doesn't help the murder mystery in this film that much, considering that the rest of the suspects are the biggest group of dorks this side of the generation. Outside of a few accusations being weakly tossed around like wet paper towels, none of these other characters even have an ounce of menace. They're the sweetest bunch of theater kids you'll ever meet, and the movie never made me suspect anyone else one time. You should have just left that half-assed scene in the car out of the film where Tatum discovers Sam Reckner was also making AI-generated videos of Stu. Get the fuck out of here with that. A lot of the criticisms we have talked about so far stem from movie logic just not really adding up. Now, I can excuse a lot of that if I'm being totally honest, but the biggest thing that turns me off from Scream 7 is how they rubbed dirt in the faces of franchise fans. When the killers are revealed, Ethan Embry specifically says that Stu is dead and it would be stupid to think that he was alive. You know, when Scream 6 playfully killed one of its ghost faces with the same TV that took out Stu Macher back in 1996, that was fun, that was tongue-in-cheek, it was harmless. This line right here and the overall attitude of the film is flat out calling the audience dumb for ever thinking that they would bring back Stu Macher, despite droves of people showing up to the theaters excited for Matthew Lillard to return. Listen, I might not be crazy about the theory, but I don't think that fans are stupid for wanting that to happen. Stu is one of the best ghost faces. Of course people are going to want to see him return. I know that if this film had brought back Stu Macher, a ton of my friends would have been jumping for joy in the theaters the first time they saw it. Instead, this film decided to punish fans for ever even coming up with little theories in the first place. What the fuck, Scream 7? What was so cool about Scream 6, especially for me, is that they were momentarily able to bring to life one of my favorite fan theories. Following Ghostface around from his perspective for the opening scene still makes my Scream-loving heart skip a beat every time I see it. That's why I want to happily admit that I was wrong here about Scream 7. The worst case scenario was never Stu coming back to the franchise and exciting a bunch of fans. The worst case scenario was what we got. A film that tumultuously tricked fans into showing up to the theaters, but this time not for a fun shock. Rather, a pretentious outcome that likely left a lot of Screamers feeling cheated. I don't know how else to interpret Scream 7, that's just how I'm taking it. If you really liked it though, I think that's great. I'm so happy that you enjoyed a film. At the end of the day, it is just a movie. What did you guys think about Scream 7 though? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.